You're tuned to Russ, McClellan and Friends on the real estate show Home Sweet Home. Let's get back to Russ.
Hey, welcome back to Home Sweet Home with Russ, McClellan and Friends. You know, I had Jason Brooks on earlier, and he was actually in a boat fishing on the Columbia River for salmon. So he called in and talked on my radio show. So I might as well jump from the Columbia River to Maui, where my man Fletcher Ellingson and the Art of Feeling Good is calling in. I'm sure that this was your plan when you went to Maui, was to block time to talk on my show. So I really appreciate the forethought.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you know, I tell you what, just be ready for whatever happens in life, right?
Yeah, spontaneity is the fuel. Drives us all, I think. I think this need for certainty is overrated. It's one of my my concepts I'm always trying to understand, but you've told me a couple times I'm a little bit strange, and so I got to kind of understand people do like to have certainty. And speaking of the lack of certainty, here we go again with new mandates from the government and COVID taking some spikes. And I know your business is to help people maybe tell themselves a different story. And I'm curious what that, you know, if you could share again for everybody listening that's not familiar with your coaching work, what that means. And then maybe share some of the successes that you're having with the many people you're coaching in our company at Keller Williams.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So first off, yeah, the practice of feeling good, what that really is about is it is the practice of bringing an empowering story to whatever situation is at hand. We are extremely practiced across the board at creating stories that usually do not feel good and usually do not serve us. We tend to look at situations and look for the negative, or the worst case scenario, instead of creating something that really moves us forward. And so, in a nutshell, you know, the game I'm playing and the game I help my clients play is one of awakening to where we are or to who we are beyond our history and our current life situation. And this is done by evolving our sense of awareness, declaring boldly who we are, and here's the key: stepping into possibility, stepping into what's possible instead of reacting from our history.
Yeah, the programming that we have, and we've worked together for, I don't know, 9 or 10 months now. It's fascinating how instinctual we become in our reactions.
Yes.
And maybe you could talk about why that's not necessarily your fault. In other words, if somebody says something to you and you're like, you know, that just made me angry, and then you go on a rant about what they just said, why do we do that versus just let it go? Right.
Because we all are hardwired. We all are programmed. That's the species that we are, and it's modeled for us from, you know, the day we're born. It's modeled for us, and then our brain just takes what is modeled for us and starts literally programming, making programs, just like a coder does in the computer world. Our programs are then developed, and then we have to then follow the programs until, kind of like Keanu Reeves in The Matrix, until we break out and break or bend the program and set ourselves free. What's really the key to that is the stories that we are creating on an ongoing basis. And I'll give you a couple examples from in the real estate world with people who are in your office. So as you know, I'm working with a number of people there. And one of the greatest things is working with people who have massive drive, but are living in a place of overwhelm, because they've got exactly what they need to be successful in their world, in the industry that they're in. You'd think by looking out from the outside in, you'd think they've got it all going on. You think they should be happy. They're making lots of money. They've got lots of leads. They're connecting. They're doing well. But if you sit down and talk with them, there's very low happiness factor. They're overwhelmed. And so one of the reasons for that is because of the story that they are bringing to their day. And so some of the work that I do with some of your people is help them bring an empowering story which allows them to continue to work at the level they're working, but now they're doing it from a place of beauty, and the result is they're doing it with ease and a new level of joy, and that feels really good.
Yeah, it's hard to explain to people, but once you figure this little trick out, even just a little bit, it's almost like you're cheating in life.
It really is, yeah. Because and then people looking in from the outside really do like, gosh, they do have it all, and they seem to be really happy. What's that about?
Yeah,
right?
Why aren't they stressed out? That would kill me. That's too much. And the funny thing about this, I was thinking about it the other day, is when someone says, well, I got to go take a walk and calm down so I can be level-headed. Mm-hmm. And really, what if you could be level-headed instantly? Right. I mean,
exactly.
I mean, why do you need to walk around? What's causing you, if you admit that you're going to be level-headed after 15 minutes, what is that 15-minute period of time? What's it caused by? And what can we do if we could accelerate that to 1 second? How would that feel?
You're totally on to the secret there, right? Because what in that 15 minutes, what people are doing is they're processing, because they've been reacting to an automatic program. So they're processing now, and they are ultimately developing a new story. And so they come back, they're calmed down. What they've done in that time is they developed a new story that, okay, I can handle this, or I have the capacity for this, or we can work this out. Whereas before, they left in a huff because their story was, this is not working. This is impossible. I can't do this. We're not communicating. So, and therefore they're all in a huff because they're reacting to that disempowering story.
Yeah, you talk about communicating. It was hard enough before we added Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, and text messaging at an all-time high, emailing at an all-time high. And we've heard people say that tone is lost sometimes. The delivery of tone in the message is lost. And there's then a giant assumption made on the other end. And I can't even tell you, in the real estate business almost daily, how I'm talking to somebody that got an email that made them angry or frustrated. And then I said, well, we picked up the phone and talked to them. Mm-hmm. And it's like, well, no. And I said, well, that might be a good place to start, but don't start being pissed, right? Like, try to stay calm. But, again, it's like cheating. And I say it like that because it's not easy. This isn't like a magic cauldron or a magic wand that in 1 second Fletcher's going to be able to tell you something and then, oh, now I'm going to be an easygoing guy that or gal. It's not what it's like, right? There's work to get there.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why we call it the practice of feeling good. Just like you and your people, you guys practice real estate. You practice by being in it. All day long, 7 days a week. You're practicing, you're learning all the time. You're trying things that fail. You're gathering information. You're getting out there and noticing what works and noticing what doesn't work. That's called practicing. It's like controlled failure in a sense. And until you hit on that one thing that really produces the result that you want.
Yeah, I don't know if we shared this on another show or not together, but it happened to me not that long ago where a guy said some disparaging things about a client of mine. I was another agent from the west side of the mountain, so nobody over here, and I got fired up. And I kind of like caught an edge and laid into him a little bit about what I thought of his opinion. Childish. I'm 52 years old, right? So I got off the phone and I called you and I was like, what the heck just happened? Thought I had this stuff figured out. And maybe you could share with the listeners what you said to me.
Yeah, so I mean that's a perfect example of you were caught up in a story like, hey, nobody talks to me that way, or hey, nobody disparages my friend that way, or talks about my client that way. Hey, nobody does that.
Right.
And then you had that programmatical reaction that was put in you years ago. You had that reaction, but the cool thing is that you had a level of awareness because you've been practicing. Like, you saw the reaction and said, whoa, that's not even me. Like that was automatic. That was the automatic thinking taking place. And so you called, we had a conversation, and we ultimately developed, or you ultimately developed a different story. And our stories give us our access to the actions that we take. And so you suddenly had access to a different action, and you then hung up the phone and made another phone call to that person, right?
Yeah, I called him back, and this is part of being human. I was willing to be vulnerable and apologized for my reaction. Not to get into too much depth with him about it and explain myself too much. I just said, hey, I probably could have handled that better. He's a good friend of mine. It's probably not the right way to handle it. Here's the information you were asking for. Here's what's really going on from our perspective. He appreciated the vulnerability that I was displaying. His guard came down, and instead of duking it out in mortal real estate combat over the telephone, we decided to do a deal, and both our clients got very happy. So,
yeah.
Again,
exactly.
My goal is to shorten when I fire up like that. And conflict resolution is part of the game of real estate. That's why they pay us. It's important for me to try to reduce that 15 minutes down. But I'm still human, and I still fail my way forward. In fact, I always say that success is just simply failing your way forward over and over again with not the lack of enthusiasm in between. So.
Absolutely. I love it. Yeah, absolutely.
Well,
and, you mentioned the mask mandate coming up, so a lot of people that could emotionally set people back. My challenge to everyone listening is, let's come up with an empowering story. I don't know what that empowering story needs to be for you to feel good, but let's come up with it. Like for me, oh, here we go again. Okay, here we go again. Maybe we're going to get it right this time, or maybe we're going to, maybe it's going to be the thing that needs to happen to put it all to bed, or I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm going to trust that we're going to get through this. I'm just going to trust. I'm going to trust that, and that feels good rather than doubting or being in fear. And we have the capacity to do this. That's an empowering story. We can do this. We're in it together. We'll figure it out. We're an intelligent species. We can handle it.
Yeah, we can agree to disagree at times and still be friends.
Absolutely. We can agree to disagree, and we're still going to get through this. And that's an empowering story, as opposed to oh my God, here we go again. It's going to be the worst thing ever. It's not really the worst thing ever. Again, think of a lot more things that are worse. We can do it, and that's an empowering story.
Yep. I appreciate you calling in, my man. If you want to get a hold of Fletcher and talk about coaching with him, I highly recommend it. It's revolutionizing in your mind. His number is 509-679-0927. Or what's your website, Fletcher?
It is FletcherEllingson.com, or you can go to thepracticeoffeelinggood.com.
All right, we'll get back to the beaches of Maui and those Mai Tais and create a powerful story on the ocean.
You got it. Thanks, sir.
Thanks for calling in. See ya.